Dun, 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 dun,
Ba-da-dum.
dun, 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 Welcome to Torah Smash, the podcast for nerdy Jews, where our lives of Jewish learning collide with our love of nerd culture. In each episode, we discuss what we lovingly call a Torah Smash, which we have defined as a beautiful collision of one thing from the world of Judaism with another from nerd culture. I am RDY, and joining me today are...
Barak Malkin.
Ethan Lane Miller.
Yes, we are just the three of us this episode. Again, like we've got quite a few episodes that are past and coming that is just the three of us. And as much as I love our amazing guests, it's kind of nice just to see you both. You are good people.
It's
And
you've hosted a lot of like guests in your home, and it's like, whew,
yeah,
all right, it's us now.
yeah. So, and you two really are very good people. And I like to think that I'm a good person too. And of course, I would suggest that most people...
Sorry, I was nodding right there to realize it just sounds like Barak and I are just like, yeah, we're good people.
I heard the marble shaking. Don't worry.
Okay, thank you.
So most people think that they are good people. And usually when someone says they're not a good person, it's an indication that they are a good person, but they're going through a rough patch or a crisis of some kind. In fact, even the villains of our best stories really believe that they are the good guys in their narrative. Thanos is the easiest example of this in modern nerddom, since his desire to snap half the population away was his attempt to deal with the limited resources available for surging populations. In his mind, he was an environmentalist. But in this world, in our world, not just Earth 616, but the world we live in, there are people who are genuinely good people.
I'm sorry. Can we say that our universe is in universe 316?
Oh, yeah, I like that better.
Yeah, great.
Yeah,
okay. It's canon now.
It's canon.
Could you fill me in on 316
613
under there we go. Okay, I understand.
That's what I meant.
So in this world, which we are dubbing Universe 613, there are some people who are genuinely good people, a finite number of people who are considered to be such good people that they sustain the goodness of the world. And that finite number is 36. They're known as Lamed Vavnikim, after the Hebrew letters Lamed and Vav that stand for 30 and 6, respectively. Nik is the Hebrew suffix that designates a thing as a person, so it could be translated as the 36ers, though we usually say the 36 truly righteous people of the world. So what in our world of nerdy things connects to the concept of Lamed Vavnikim?
So this isn't it, but there was a show that was on probably, I want to say 10 or 15 years ago at this point, called Touch. And if you haven't seen it, it was it was a great show. It featured Kiefer Sutherland in one of the main roles. And this young boy played by David Mazouz, who has now recently he was the young Batman in the Gotham show. But the show at the end of like season 1 tilted into telling us that the kid was one of the 36.
Oh.
So definitely not that, but I'm going to throw that out there as a topic. And if you haven't seen the show, I loved it. It was a great show. I'm so sad it ended so soon.
I didn't know the show. I do find that a lot of the times the shows that I'm like, this is amazing, are only like one season. Like Misfits of Science, such a great show, and it went off the air so fast.
Oh.
So thanks for telling us about Touch. Any guesses?
I have another guess that I know is wrong.
Go ahead.
There was a show on Nickelodeon from 1999 to 2002 called 100 Deeds for Eddie McDowd. It was a show where a bully messed with the wrong person who turns out they kind of had like magical powers. And so they got turned into a dog. And so the bully was turned into a dog. And in order to turn back into being a human, they had to do 100 good deeds. And the only person who could communicate with him was the last kid he bullied. So he lived with the last kid that he bullied as a dog. And he was treated like as a dog, because the only person who knew that he used to be a human was the kid who he had bullied. And so he began this journey to become a good person. And the series was canceled before he completed 100 good deeds. So we don't know what happened.
Oh my gosh. It sounds like a play that Natalie and I saw in Chicago called Judgment Day. And it was starring Jason Alexander from Seinfeld, where he played this lawyer who was a terrible person and like even knew he was a terrible person and had a heart attack and was about to die when he caught the angel who was telling him he was going to die in a legal loophole and made her send him back. And so she sent him back with the stipulation that he could earn his way into heaven by doing good things. And I was like, oh, it's the concept of mitzvot as explained by the Catholics.
These are all making me think of My Name is Earl. Another wrong guess. Okay, I think we
To our Torah
Actually, my name is Earl is actually a really good guess too. I don't think it's the right guess, but it's a good guess.
All right, I'm going to give another guess.
Wrong, Jason.
Yeah, right. I'm going to give a final guess because I definitely know what this is. And I threw out Touch because it was a great show. But as soon as I saw that it was the 36, the Righteous, I just knew that it was going to be Deadpool and Wolverine.
Oh, yes, friends. Yeah. We are talking Deadpool and Wolverine today. I know we've all seen it. We have not talked about it, which I've been wanting. Like, of all the people in the world I know, there are two people I've wanted to talk about this movie with. And I know that we like to hold on until we're recording. So, yes, we are doing Deadpool and Wolverine. Now, this movie was... It was a love letter to the MCU, to Deadpool fans, and to the fans of comic books.
I disagree, but we'll get into that later. Go ahead.
Okay.
I have an editor's note.
Yeah.
There were 116 F-bombs in this movie. How many are we allowed in this conversation about the movie?
Well, we are a family-friendly podcast.
Are we owned by Disney?
We are not owned by Disney.
Right.
But I don't think we should reference drugs and alcohol at quite the rate.
The extent, sure.
Okay.
Even in the beginning of the movie, when the mother in the van says, "Can you at least answer the question without swearing?" Sorry, I don't have kids. I think it's the answer. Not, I'm sorry for being a bad person or whatever, but because of the children. So there are so many afikomen in this movie that it is really hard to hold back. But we have had a request to go over them at the end that don't come up naturally in our conversation.
Yeah.
So, yeah, Barak.
Yeah.
What the f- Oh, sorry. Was that my one?
We're allowed 2 to be PG-13.
Okay.
I'm
done. I've used my one.
Which I think they passed in the first scene.
Like the first minute.
The first minute, I think they got to 10 or something, or 12, like when he found spoiler alerts ahead. When he found the skeleton of Wolverine that he dug up, he like did a whole bunch in a row. And immediately within 3 minutes, he had hit like a max.
Yep. Yeah. So early on in the movie, he refers to himself as Marvel Jesus.
Yeah.
which cracked me up maybe a little too much. And he tries really hard to be Marvel Jesus. And that makes you think, oh, surely Jesus would have been a Lamed Vavnik if there was a Jesus and if there really are 36 truly righteous people in the world. So this idea, it seems to me that striving to be Marvel Jesus is like striving to be a Lamed Vavnik. Let me also, before we get too far away from the Jewish stuff, like where do we get this whole 36 righteous people in the world? And so I found 2 main sources from it. One is from a collection of midrashim, which we know from Miriam Amzavin are fan fiction, called Genesis Rabbah, which means like greater Genesis. So in this one, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai says that the world never lacks 30 righteous people. He also goes through to say that if there are only 30, I and my son are among them. And if there are only 20, I and my son are among them. And if there are only 10, I and my son are among them. And if there are only 2, it's my son and me. And if there's only
there's
one,
Sith.
And if it's only one, it's me. Like he says this about himself. Gotta love it.
Is that where it comes from? That portion, that reading?
That is one of the sources.
Oh, okay.
So that's called Genesis Rabbah. The one that I think more people know is Sanhedrin 97b. Sanhedrin is a tractate of the Talmud. So in here, Abaye is one of the rabbis, the world has no fewer than 36 righteous people in every generation who greet the divine presence. And then he goes on to quote Isaiah 30:18, which says, "Happy are those who wait for God," in my translation, like the way I would translate it. But "for God" is rendered "for him" in Hebrew. So "for him" is pronounced lo, and it's spelled lamed vav, which is why, so like I said earlier, lamed is 30 and vav is 6. So that's where they get that there are 36 is from this verse in Isaiah.
It's interesting. I never heard that it was at least 36, which means that really it's like 36 plus righteous people, but everybody narrows it down. Like it could mean that, like,
I'd never heard it that way either. I always heard it was 36.
yeah,
me too.
So it could be 47. It could be 119 or 131 or more. A million and one.
And just about 10 years ago, I think it was just over 10 years ago at the CCAR convention in 2014, I was asked to shave my head to raise money for cancer research in honor of a colleague's son who had been diagnosed with cancer. And the concept was, when it was brought to me, was we are trying to get 36 rabbis to shave their head so that we would be the Lamed Vavnikim. And as it ended out, I was one of the first 20, I guess, who was asked, because I had taken over working at a synagogue for the father of one of the people who was organizing it. So they asked him, they asked me. And so just by luck, I was one of the early people asked. And when it ended up, I think they had something like 90 rabbis shaving our heads.
Wow.
Yeah. So it became a huge thing. It became a program at the convention, like people just watching us shave our heads. It was, But that idea that they originally wanted to ask 36 rabbis to do it was to connect us to the Lamed Vavnikim.
Nice. That's great.
Yeah.
I also, before we dive into it, I pulled off my shelf just because that's the topic for today. There was a friend of mine in LA at the synagogue I worked at, Temple Sinai of Glendale. Shout out. Hi, friends. And one of the congregants' name was Kristopher White, was a comic book creator. And so he had written this mini graphic novel called The 36. And so
that is cool.
Yeah, it's very fun. Ooh. It's very cool. And I haven't read it in a... Yeah, it's very... I only know about it because the congregant was the creator of it. And so for those who are interested in this topic of The 36, I recommend checking out. It's called The 36 by Kristopher White. Kristopher with a K.
Oh, right. That's good. I used to know a Kristopher White spelled with a C. So I'm glad he spells it with a K. Shout out to Midnight White. So in the movie, I really do think that Deadpool was setting himself up to be a Lamed Vavnik. The, messianic complex, so to speak, that guided the movie. It went from quest to get out of the void to quest to destroy the Time Ripper, which were, I guess, connected. A moment where when they first introduced the Time Ripper, Deadpool said, "What in the MacGuffin is that?"
Yes.
So a MacGuffin is an item in a movie that is the focus of the movie. The big example of a MacGuffin is the Falcon in the Maltese Falcon. Yeah.
I loved that. You had said that you picked this because of Marvel Jesus comment. I thought you would actually pick this because they had said that each universe had an
anchor being.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's where my mind was too.
That's where I was going as well. Yes.
Yeah.
So, he's calling himself the Marvel Messiah, the Marvel Jesus, but Paradox is calling him an anchor being or at least the concept.
No, he was not. He said Deadpool was not an anchor being.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. He said he wasn't an anchor being, and everyone kind of laughed at the concept of him being an anchor being. But does that mean he wasn't?
Interesting.
TVA, that's a good question, right? Maybe the universe really should have more than one anchor being, because Wolverine wasn't alive more than 300 years ago. So how is the universe in existence prior to him if there was no anchor being? And so it felt like the fact that the Wolverine he was trying to get back for his universe died. I didn't understand why the universe would die. Why wasn't there ever going to be another anchor being? Didn't make sense to me. I think I will also say in this rant, because it lines up, I thought the movie was a lot of fun. I went with my good friend Jason. We kept hitting each other and be like, "Oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, look at it. Oh my god, look who it is now. Oh my god, look at that in the background." All that stuff. And afterwards I thought about the movie and it had a lot of holes for me. So I thought it was a fun film. I thought it was a terrible movie. I thought
Really?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of things wrong with Deadpool and Wolverine as its own independent story in this universe. But for the MCU fan in me, great, super entertaining.
What were some of the holes?
There's two things for me. One is that the first two movies are really hinged on the deep love that Deadpool and Vanessa have for each other. And that's washed away because he got depressed and she left him because of that. That didn't ring right for me for her character after they were the ones meant for each other and he saved her from being killed, all that stuff. And then she leaves him because he's upset. It didn't feel right for their relationship to me. That's one. Two, I still have no idea what Paradox's plan is. I've researched on Google so many times. It's like, wait, what? Why did he bring Deadpool in out of his universe for this purpose? Because the universe was going to die. He just didn't want it to take so long. But then what was his? I don't know what the plan was for Deadpool in this written version. And it doesn't make sense to me. And I've read a couple of different things and I was like, wait, I think that makes sense, but it still doesn't make sense to me. So those two things.
I saw okay, so first of all, your first point, I think you're just being picky and we didn't
and then they're just awkward friends at the end. Oh
no, she holds his hand. It's very it had romantic undertones. And I think there is more, the flashback we got is only the end of all of their struggles as a couple. So we don't know what else might have happened there that how it's not just depression and it's something else going on that we're not privy to perhaps.
Yeah, but then even that sorry listeners, so even if that's the case, the fact that his version is right from his memory is she says essentially like, you aren't doing anything with your life, so she leaves him and he goes, I know what I'll do, I'll save our universe for her. And then she does, and she goes, holds his hand. That was nice. Thanks. Let's just be friends. Like it doesn't fit in my head with what their relationship was previously. They were like set up as being perfect for each other. I think here's the problem. I have the perfect wife for me, and she is my beshert and vice versa. And so I felt like I understood the relationship that Deadpool has with Vanessa. Now, it doesn't make I can never envision that situation happening to either of us and the other one going, I'm going to leave you because of that. It felt like they should have pushed through, or I think there's a better storyline for him to need to save the universe that's Deadpool adjacent without them having to break up for it. It felt loose to me.
I get it. I also think that I don't like to go to the fan sites to look at what other people say until we've had a chance to discuss. Mm-hmm. But going to the Paradox thing, I see him as a disgruntled employee.
Yeah, absolutely.
Fan of pruning, sad that they got rid of pruning, wants to keep pruning. And I think defeating him was defeating what the TVA was in Loki season 1. And
totally agree.
What to buy that?
But why did Paradox bring Deadpool? It still doesn't explain that to me.
To prune him.
To prune Deadpool specifically?
Because he had the potential to become an anchor being.
I don't know. He specifically said that wasn't the case. He laughed at him when he said that he was the anchor being.
He's a villain.
I don't know.
The Oracle told Neo at the beginning of the Matrix that he was not the one. And yet he became
That's true.
Oh. I think they could have just pruned the universe with him still in it, as opposed to pulling him out for this monologue. Like, I know it's a villain monologue. Deadpool's better than that. All of this stuff doesn't fit with me. Here's what I wanted.
Speaking of monologuing, Buck, no lines.
Yeah, the rest of the movie was a lot of fun, though.
Yeah.
I loved it. I loved every second of it. I had such a great time.
Me too.
We can get to the surprise cast a little later, I think.
Oh, that's in my notes.
Good.
Yeah.
So I want to go to the scene with Happy Hogan.
Yes.
So that was one of many afikomen palooza scenes.
Yeah.
Just all of the Stark stuff in the background. And it was a little bit hard to follow the scene as my eye flitted all over the background.
Yeah.
I'm happy to call out a couple of things that, like the Forbes magazine with Pepper Potts on the cover. There was a War Machine mask from one Iron Man movie, an Iron Man mask that Peter Parker in the Universal canon was wearing in the Stark Expo that may or
from
may
Iron Man 1 with the child was wearing. Yeah, that kid's mask. Yeah.
which canonically is now Peter Parker.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And then that mask was in front of a picture of Tony Stark with someone else, and you couldn't see the someone else, but that picture is him and Peter Parker.
Yeah. Do you know why they had to cover it?
Because they
didn't want to pay licensing fees.
They would have lost a movie contract if he appeared.
Oh, that's even worse.
Yeah. And the moving sculpture from Potts' desk and Iron Man 3, and of course the prototype cap shield and the Tony Stark has a heart.
Yeah. I haven't watched any of those, all the Easter eggs you missed YouTube videos yet.
Oh no, I won't.
I cannot imagine the number of things in this movie that they have to pause for. It is insane to me. Like I spent my movie doing that. It was
everything in the void. Everything in the void.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we'll get to that in a sec. So
I'm really glad that they crawled into Ant-Man through his face and not through any other means.
Well, I thought it was very poignant that Cassandra Nova was living in a skull.
Yeah, I love that.
God, that's so good.
I caught that as the person who goes into somebody's head, that she was working out of somebody's head. That was great.
I want to get to that particular giant man in a second, but so back to the Happy Hogan scene. Barak, I want to give the biggest afikomen to you if you saw it.
There's a lot of stuff in that scene.
There's one that I think is very Barak.
I saw this movie a couple of weeks ago now, so I don't even remember all. There was so much. That was the beginning of the movie. Give me a hint. Give me a hint. What was it? Give me the property.
The date.
No, I don't know.
Okay, so when the scene begins, it opens on the little calendar on Happy's desk. It's March 14th, 2018.
I don't know. 314 pi. Oh, wait. No, that's not pi?
Yeah, it's Pi Day.
Yeah, but 3.1415926. Like, that's not 2018.
It's not. The day is Pi Day.
Okay.
The year is significant because it's post-snap, pre-Endgame.
Oh.
Yeah. Gotcha.
Which is why Tony Stark's not there. It's why we don't run into any other Avengers. They're dealing with some stuff.
That's funny that even with all the heroes snapped, they were like, you're just not right for us. Yeah,
right?
It's harsh.
So in this scene, like you're saying, Happy explains that he's not Avengers material because Avengers don't do it because they need it. They do it because the world needs them. And this is what distinguishes Lamed Vavnikim from others who do good. And I think that's what connects the movie to the concept, is this idea that, I wouldn't call it Messiah because there's only one. But Lamed Vavnikim, there are 36.
I also think there's a big difference between the person described as a Messiah and the Lamed Vavnikim, because the person as the Messiah, to me, is somebody known and somebody that everybody's looking towards for advice or support or direction, whereas the Lamed Vavnikim are in the shadows. They're just among us. And as you said, doing it for the world, not for themselves. And so, not that the Messiah is doing it for themselves, but there's a lot of self-credit going on because you're named as the Messiah, and so people are coming to you for questions, whereas the Lamed Vavnikim are just mensches. It's a group of mensches just doing what should be done for the world.
Tzadikim, as we say, which means righteous people.
Yeah.
So I do want to go into the void because, oh my gravy,
Gosh, I wouldn't mind. Not that void.
So much stuff.
Yeah.
And I didn't watch the trailers. I saw one trailer early on fighting in front of the 20th Century Fox logo. And that was it. I saw that, like, with the shadow of Wolverine. That was the last trailer that I saw.
When he said, get your special socks out, nerds. It's gonna get good. I was like, that's when I grabbed Natalie's leg. I was like, ah!
While we're in the void, this first fight scene, anybody recognize the fight sequence?
Yes, from Peter Parker from the
From
first
the
Spider-Man movie.
Tobey Maguire movie, when he's
Yeah.
fighting Flash Thompson in the hallway and he's like quickly moving out of the way with his spider sense and quick movement. It was the exact same choreography as the first Spider-Man movie.
And that made me try and see if there was other borrowed choreography, but I could not peg anything else. So, no pun intended. I was fooled into thinking it was Captain America.
Jason was not. I'll tell you, our good friend Jason was not fooled. I was fooled. And before he said it, he leaned into me and went, "Flame on." And then Chris Evans said, "Flame on." I was like, what? What?
Yeah, I was fooled. When Chris Evans said flame on, I was, it's one of those moments, like, I pride myself in knowing what's going to happen in movies. Like, yeah, the good guys win is one thing, but little things and secrets that pop out.
Yeah.
Totally. I wanted Cap so bad that I feel like I willingly forgot about the Human Torch.
They definitely led us there by showing the pictures of him and him saluting him in the TVA.
That's
They
true.
wanted us to have our mind. It was like a mentalism trick that they were pulling.
Also true.
Yes. And clearly setting up that like Deadpool was kind of idolizing him a little bit too. Like,
Yeah.
I loved that.
And good on Jason for not getting dragged into the mentalism.
Oh, it's crazy. I will say I loved all of the afikomen people that showed up throughout.
Okay, who was your favorite afikomen person? Because I lost my mind when Wesley Snipes walked through as Blade.
So good.
Right?
That's what got me.
And he said, "Some blank blank still trying to ice skate uphill," which is from the Blade movie.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. It's a
loved
terrible
it.
quote in that movie. And the fact that they picked that quote it was just very funny.
And they also like broken fourth wall because Reynolds and Snipes famously did not get along on set.
There's been articles that have come out since the movie saying that was blown out of proportion and that they still had a good friendship after the film. And so I don't know how true or not true that is, but
either way, they're playing into it.
Yeah.
When he says, "You've never liked me."
Yeah. I don't know who my favorite was. I will say there was a lot of people in the background that I didn't identify, and I had to go hunting afterwards of who was that in the striped pirate looking shirt. And it was the Russian from Punisher, but there wasn't the same guy. And like there was a lot of those of people that I wish had come back. They had the Blob, but it wasn't the Blob from the Wolverine movie.
Right.
And they had the guy from the Punisher, and they had Bullseye from Daredevil, but it wasn't the same actor. There's a lot of those people that I had to be like, who are they? But
there was
everybody else is super
Luke
fun.
Cage. That may or may not have been Luke Cage. It was definitely Psylocke. It was definitely Azazel. Yeah. Same actor for Azazel. Same actor for Psylocke. Obviously Toad. Yeah, and
Pyro, so good.
And getting Tyler Mane to come back as Sabretooth.
Yeah,
that was fantastic
for what was a very short stint as Sabretooth.
Yeah, and like Indiana Jones shooting the guy with the sword.
Yeah. I think I loved Channing. I wish that the Channing Tatum movie had come out when it was announced. I would have loved that. I think he played it very funny, and I loved laughing at the gambit that he did. And I wish that he had a film that I could have enjoyed the character building of him, as opposed to he was absolutely there as the comic relief with his stuff. It was great.
The line, who is your dialect coach? The Minions.
Yeah.
Fantastic. And I will say, to answer the question about who was my favorite, it might be Gambit. Not necessarily Channing Tatum, but Gambit in general.
Yeah.
Because Gambit has long been one of my favorites. Like Gambit, Daredevil in the Marvel Universe, like have always just been some of those like not quite as popular heroes that I just really find myself drawn toward. And also Rogue, with the Rogue and Gambit romance, I think has always been an amazing love story. And I would say like the callback line that was like fourth wall breaking, and when they said that Daredevil died and Deadpool goes, "Oh, I'm sorry," and Elektra goes, "It's fine."
Yeah.
That was chef's kiss.
I think my other favorite cameo would have been the Cavalrine.
Yes.
I loved that. I think what I wish happened is that when they were going through the universes, just as Deadpool had this slew of other variant people, I wish that Wolverine's characters were all played by other actors. I wanted to see Taron Egerton, as I think he would have been a great short version of Wolverine. I know they went super funny with like really short 3'6" comic accurate Wolverine.
Yeah, comic accurate, right?
Yeah.
I was like, wait, he was short. I was gonna say that he was short.
But I think there's enough other actors that could have. I know Daniel Radcliffe at one point was rumored to be Wolverine. I would have loved that. He could have done a good patch, I think. And so that's the only thing I wished was more Wolverine variants. And people had all those memes of like, there's been 9 Batmans and 4 Superman, but only 1 Wolverine. But now there's like, but only 2 Wolverine. I did like that he cocked his hands. He did the Henry Cavill Hancock when he pulled his blades out. That was fun.
I liked the fact that it was always Hugh Jackman, except for once, for a different reason that we'll hopefully get to by the end.
Well, what's the reason?
Yeah, we're here.
Okay. I don't think Deadpool is the Lamed Vavnik. I think it's Wolverine.
Agreed. That's what Paradox said. Great. We're all in agreement.
Yeah. That, Deadpool, again, like, was told he wasn't the anchor being, even though I tried to challenge it. I was trying to challenge it to throw you off the scent. Wolverine is the one who knows about how to save worlds. He's the one who we fans have always wanted more of. He's the one who says he's not a good person. Things like he was the worst Wolverine. He says he was always the wrong guy. The scene that really locked it in for me was where Wolverine is drinking by the campfire and X-23 comes out. And she has that conversation with him about joining along that we don't know is successful until he comes out of the trunk of the Odyssey. Mm-hmm. But where he says, like, I'm the wrong guy. And she says, you're always the wrong guy.
Yeah.
Like, that is what being a Lamed Vavnik is. You do what is done because because you're the wrong guy. And even Hugh Jackman has become an anchor being for superheroes we grew up with because he is the only Wolverine until he's 90. And no matter what Wesley Snipes says about Blade, which may or may not have been a dig against Mahershala Ali, I hope I said his name right. And if Tony Stark was a Lamed Vavnik, we know, like, for sure Tony Stark was an anchor being.
I have a question.
Okay.
Do we think Doctor Strange,
the amateur magician?
Yeah, he's still pretty full of himself, still pretty self-centered, I would say.
Well, did you notice something about the sling ring?
It had infinity stones in it, right?
The time stone and the reality stone.
Oh, which is what was allowing her to do her powers.
Ta-da!
I missed that.
It's what allowed the sling ring to go from the void to the world, because the sling ring usually just goes in the world that you're in.
Yeah, that's great.
So, yeah, I don't know about Doctor Strange. Amateur magician. I will say that not since the first Doctor Strange have I seen so many homages to comic book covers.
Yeah, agreed. I will also say that 36 plus, right? Lamed Vavnikim is not one person. So in the Deadpool and Wolverine movie, we're supposed to believe there's one anchor being, but I think that maybe there's one major anchor being with like 35 plus more minor anchor beings, and I would give Deadpool a minor anchor being ranking.
Yeah, sure. And yeah, I think that's great. And I think that's also like that supports, like, they were playing AC/DC during one of the fight scenes, which is what they played in Iron Man 1, which was to some of us the start of the MCU. So it's like a new start of MCU with AC/DC. The music, I think, had so many afikomen in it, just a couple of songs from Hugh Jackman movies and plays were either heard or mentioned.
I loved The Greatest Show. Like that was 2 seconds. It was delightful.
It was fantastic. And then that they ended up fighting to You're the One That I Want, which is a song about two people telling each other to stay away when they actually love each other.
You're talking about the car fight scene, right?
Yeah.
That, to me, that fight scene was the Deadpool fight version of a car makeout scene. It felt like they were just making out in the different positions in the car as you would in a heavy makeout session. And so, like, in the front seat and in the back seat, and like it was a beautifully choreographed fight scene. Yeah. And it was definitely their love story. Like, it was Deadpool and Wolverine not verse Wolverine. And I think it's because this was an entire love letter to their story together. And so that to me wasn't a fight scene. They're one of the few people that can fight each other without killing the other person. And so they can just get their anger out aggressively, like Deadpool used to do with Vanessa, and have passionate, rough love. That to me is what that fight scene was to them.
That's a good point. And I think
Yeah.
the song choice supports that.
Agreed.
I hadn't thought of it, but I like that a lot.
Yeah. I did really like the looking at the coexist bumper sticker.
Yeah.
Which, of course,
Yeah. I wanted a Titanic hand slap with blood. That would have been great on the window scene. Like if they went to the car window.
Yeah.
And instead of having fogged up, it was like just blood there, and then like a Titanic hand slap with scrape.
that's funny.
That would have been
But
good.
we did get the Spock across the window at the end.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So speaking of the end, knowing that we're short on time, at the end, when it was presented to them by Paradox, one person would make the connection and obliterate themselves and save the universe. But it's not one Messiah, it's two of the Lamed Vavnikim. And when they do it together, it no longer, their power helps support the other. And this could also be like handing off the MCU from Tony Stark to Logan, from Tony Stark to Deadpool. Who knows?
Or to Peter.
Or to Peter.
I think without him, they couldn't have gotten in there. I think Peter's one of the Lamed Vavnikim.
I think that's, and the fact that all the Deadpools love Peter.
Yeah, he's definitely an anchor being.
So can we get to some cast people?
Yeah, some more.
Oh my goodness. So when I was looking at when I was watching the credits at the end, I was like, Reynolds. Who are all these
Yeah.
Reynoldses? So it was Inez Reynolds is his older daughter who plays Kidpool, who swears up a storm. His baby child, Olin, plays Baby Pool. So they like got him giggling and they recorded that. And of course, his wife, Blake Lively, plays what they called Lady Pool. I was hoping for Gwen Pool, but they're calling her Lady Pool. And she actually appears twice, once in costume and once in a line in the dialogue.
Oh, yes, where they referenced her.
Where he talks about how there's an extra bone in the human body when he's watching Gossip Girl.
Right.
And Gossip Girl was Blake Lively. So just awesome. Did you guys catch any of the voices for some of the other Deadpools?
Nathan
No.
Fillion.
Nathan Fillion was Deadpool.
Was which one?
The floating head.
Oh, that's so good.
Yeah.
That Headpool comes from a zombie story arc.
There's a lot. There's so many.
There's one more that I noticed from the credits.
Mm-hmm.
Cowboy Pool.
Oh, it was Matthew McConaughey.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very funny. They're so good.
As a temporary Austinite, it's very important you notice that.
There we go. So all right.
I will say while we're on all these Deadpool, I don't know if they did it on purpose or not, but that fight scene going down the street had the worst CGI in the whole movie. And I was very upset when Wolverine jumped out of the back of the bus and he didn't seem like he was fully rendered.
Yeah.
It felt so bad that it must have been on purpose, but the whole rest of the movie was so good that it just felt off to me.
Do you think it was shattered glass in the field of vision that did it? Because that's what I was attributing it to.
Even earlier, before it was that obvious, I was watching Wolverine going down the street, looking at the background stuff. And even when he was like jumping on the taxi, it just didn't feel refined.
Is it Dead Pools or Dead's Pool?
I think it's Deadpool core. There was one other, I don't know this person. His name's Paul Mullen, who is credited as playing Welsh Pool. So I can only assume that he's one of the soccer players on Reynolds' team.
He is, yeah.
But I did think I did recognize the logo, and I thought that was funny. There were some fun Deadpools in that one. Like there was a Scottish one and a samurai one and a black and white one. And it was really creative and cool.
Yeah.
I had so much fun at this movie. I just had a blast.
I had a lot of fun too. It's just a bad movie. I think I can rewatch it a couple of times for some more background stuff, and then I would be done. Yeah.
When you and I saw Flash together, Barak, that was our reaction. Like terrible movie that was so much fun.
Yes.
I wouldn't say that about Deadpool and Wolverine. I thought it was a great movie that was taking back the MCU. There was a comic book called Deadpool Kills the MCU.
Yeah.
Sorry, there was no MCU at the time. Deadpool kills the Marvel Universe. And in it, he kills every superhero, and he goes and he like kills the writers of Deadpool. Like it goes really fourth wall bending. And I felt like this was Deadpool revives the Marvel Universe.
Oh, very funny. Yeah, it's okay. We could disagree. It was super fun. The whole time I was freaking out. And it's only when I left the movie, I was like, I have to think about this because we're going to have to talk about it in the podcast. And when I started to think about it, holes started forming. And that was the only reason. If I didn't think about it, I would have loved it.
Well, I encourage you not to think. I mean, it's pretty
Okay,
much
great.
it's a very Deadpool thing to not think.
Totally agreed. Yeah.
And I think that also served as a foil to Wolverine, who wanted to think it through, who sits and ruminates. Like that's his character, to ruminate.
Do you think there'll be a fourth Deadpool movie?
I hope so.
Yeah, I hope so too.
Given how quickly this has turned into just printing money for Disney, I kind of suspect so long as Ryan Reynolds wants to do it, I suspect there will be a fourth Deadpool movie.
All right, bring it out, folks. What if they make a fourth Deadpool movie? What is the plot, or what are you hoping to see?
Wow.
You know what I want?
What?
I think I would want Deadpool's next movie to be the Marvel DC crossover.
Do you think that will ever happen?
It happened in the comics. Like,
Yeah,
sometimes.
But in the movie world, DC makes famously bad movies.
Right, give it to Deadpool. Let him make fun of it.
I can't see DC ever agreeing to that as the problem.
Fine, that's what I want.
I think DC takes itself too seriously, and that's why it makes bad movies and great TV shows.
Maybe. That could be it.
Well, whatever.
What are your guesses? Give me something.
I'm not versed enough to say. If there's a fourth, I'll be excited to see it.
I mean, Deadpool kills the Marvel Universe is pretty much like the ubiquitous Deadpool one, but I also always love it when Deadpool shows up in a Spider-Man comic or vice versa, because Deadpool is really just dirty Spider-Man.
Yeah, I hope he shows up in the upcoming Avengers films.
Yeah.
As a person. And I'm curious how he would play with the rest of the cast and not the central character, but a side jokester. And I don't know if they would play well. So I don't know if I would expect to see him.
I actually almost wonder if that's a better question. Does Deadpool show up in an Avengers movie? I'm not convinced.
Huh.
I feel like he would break it too much.
Maybe.
I think the other characters going, who is he talking to? Could also like, what's wrong with him?
Right. It'd be good if he and She-Hulk, who now in the both of them are the fourth wall breakers of the MCU.
Oh,
that would be a little bit fun.
I don't think we're going to see She-Hulk again. I think it was too panned.
Oh,
I enjoyed it, but I think it was too panned.
That makes me sad.
Yeah, it makes me sad too. And it also fits in the whole thing that they did with the Daredevil and Jessica Jones and the other shows that became the Defenders. There were 4 type shows like that. Daredevil was a classic comic book show. Jessica Jones was a soap opera. Iron Fist was a kung fu show.
Jessica Jones was a noir detective film.
I also got to correct you, RDY. Iron Fist was a bad show.
Sure, but it was kung fu. Kung fu TV was bad TV, but it was fun to watch. And Luke Cage was blaxploitation. But then they came together, and it just didn't work.
The Luke Cage show was.
I disagree. I loved the Defenders. I don't understand why people didn't like it.
Hot takes. A lot of hot takes in this one.
Yeah, it didn't hold my attention.
Maybe I'll do a future episode then. We got a new Daredevil coming out. I've got some ideas now.
Yeah.
Can't wait for the new Charlie Cox Daredevil. Can't wait for Red Hulk.
Yeah.
To come out. And we like barely scratched the surface of afikomen in this movie, and I think that's part of the joy of going back and looking at it again and again, is to find more and see what else there is and spend a time watching the background. Someone recently said to me, I can't wait till it comes on Disney Plus so I can watch it in slow motion.
Yeah. This was the only MCU movie in 2024, which is the first time that's happened in many, many years to have only one MCU movie released.
Oh, wow. I hadn't even thought of that.
Which I think is great, because slow down a little, do it right.
Totally. I think there's way too much content for us to have to keep up with, but I'm enjoying some of it. So it's good.
Love it. Well, you two, my friends, in my world are definitely Lamed Vavnikim. And I hope to continue doing good with you for many years to come.
Likewise.
Yeah, just a little bit more RDY, and you could be a Lamed Vavnikim.
I will work on it. But for now, that'll do it for this episode of Torah Smash. Our fiscal sponsor is Jewish Creativity International. Our theme music was created by Sean Fogel. You can check out Sean's bands and studio work at www.thesleepywest.com. This episode was supported in part by Juice. Juice, which stands for the Jewish Comics Experience, is a full-day convention that brings together fans, creators, and industry professionals to explore the rich history and contributions of diverse Jewish creators and content in the comics medium. Juice is created and hosted by the Center for Jewish History in New York City and will be held this year on November 10. If you are interested in attending or learning more, visit juice.org. That's JEWCE.org. Also, visit the Center for Jewish History at CJH.org for new information on their institution and their partners. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to rate and review us wherever you listen. It helps others find us and is an excellent way to support the podcast. We want to hear from you and continue today's nerdy discussion. Go to torahsmash.com to find where to connect with us online, purchase swag from our store, support us with a donation, find previous episodes, and more. And did you know that, like Deadpool, Jews occasionally break the fourth wall? That's right, every year for Sukkot, no fourth wall.
I don't know if that's going to stay in.
Is that another pun intended?
Oh, no.